Hey guys, we are here at Yoyogi Park. This is a park near Shibuya, right smack in the middle of Tokyo. And today we are going to be looking at this lens, the NIKKOR 24-120 f4S lens. Now this lens was released a few months ago by Nikon, and they managed to loan me a copy for this trip over to Japan, and I've been shooting with it throughout this trip, and I'm going to give my thoughts, my impressions of the lens and whether I like it or not. You guys know that, you might know that I have released another video which I claim that the 24-200 could be the best travel lens ever. So we're going to put this to the test. We're going to see whether that's true or not. One thing to note is that for that lens it has a variable aperture, so it's f4.5 to 6.3, whereas for this lens this is constantly f4, meaning that when regardless of whether you zoom in or you zoom out, it's going to be constantly at f4. So the other key difference is that this is also an S lens, which is Nikon's designation to say that this is a professional level lens. So that means better weather sealing, better optics, better image quality, and yeah, we're gonna see how it works out. Well, you guys might be wondering how is the focal range, how useful is the 24-120 range. Now you can see here that in the camera this is at 24mm. It's wide enough, like 24mm is pretty much the de facto wide angle focal length that you have. And then I'm going to zoom in all the way to 120. As you can see here, it's quite a lot of reach. It's definitely not going to go as far as the 24-200, but it's still a pretty good focal length to work with. Is this going to be enough? I would say yes, for most purposes. Definitely I think that this is going to be enough. If you are doing some work like portraiture, you have your 120, you can shoot at 120, you can shoot at 100, you can shoot at anything from 50 to 100, it all works out. You want to shoot something like architecture, some buildings from afar, 120 is usually more than enough unless you are in a really big space. And 24mm, like I was in the streets of Tokyo last night and I wanted to get some wide angle shots, so the 24mm really came into handy, especially in close quarters where the subjects are very close to you. So I'm really enjoying the constant aperture of f4. Now when you use a lens like this, and you zoom out all the way to 120mm, you're going to get less light hitting the sensor. So the more light that you can let into the sensor, the better, obviously. So you know, if you have a aperture that you're limited by, like let's say for example f6.3, you're going to come into issues whereby you might need to lower your shutter speed, you know, to get a longer exposure, for more light to hit the sensor, or you got to change your ISO to a higher ISO, and then you got to deal with issues like noise. So it's always good to have a larger aperture of f4 so that you can zoom out and still shoot and not to worry about that. Now one thing I am very curious to look at is chromatic aberration. Now Nikon Z lenses have always performed well in this aspect, so I chose this cluster of trees specifically for this purpose. We're going to zoom in and we're going to take a look here to see whether we spot any chromatic aberration at all. So it looks really clean, it looks good. So the size of this lens is quite reasonable. It's not too big. It's not a tiny lens either. It's actually pretty good size, I would say, for a travel lens. It fits comfortably into any camera bag. It has a 77mm diameter filter thread, so that's going to fit most professional filters that you might want to use with this lens. I've been using my standard GNDs and ND filters with this, and it all works out really great. So I'm going to do a test of the autofocus performance right here, going towards the camera, going away from the camera, Okay, so how does the lens perform in the area of bokeh, or bokeh, however you pronounced it? So the autofocus areas, it looks good. There's a little bit of hard edges to it. If you zoom out, you can see it. It's not fantastic, but then again, this is not a prime lens, so you can't expect really good autofocus areas. However, I am shooting at f4 and I think that the results are quite pleasing. There's this very nice, smooth, round blurriness to the autofocus areas. So this is another aspect that the lens has performed really, really well. You can definitely shoot good portraits with this. Just put some plants in your foreground, your model, your subject in the background. You can get some pretty good results. So I've been shooting with this lens for quite a few days now, and I feel that there is definitely a difference in sharpness and in image quality for this lens compared to the 24-200, and that is to be expected. I mean, this is a S lens, so it's expected to perform better, it's expected to be sharper. Now, would I miss the difference in focal length of 120-200? I'm not so sure. Would I replace this lens with the 24-200? Once again, I'm not sure about that, simply because they cover more or less the same purpose, but this lens just performs better and it's sharper. So if you don't have any of these lenses, I would recommend that you get this, the 24-120 instead of the 24-200, just because of image quality. If you want a longer focal range, you can consider getting a different lens. So in my camera bag now, if I have this lens and the 14-30 f4 and as well as the 100-400 f4, I am pretty much covered from 14mm to 400mm. That's a perfect focal range that a landscape photographer can ask for. So that's all my thoughts about the Nikkor 24-120 f4S lens. If you have any questions about the lens or any comments at all, feel free to leave a comment. Or remember, like my video if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much. Shalom and goodbye.